Hey there guys, this is Flamzeron, aka YouTube's Tasuke, and as you probably know by now, if you are into the same things that I am, you'll know that a second Tales of Berseria trailer was released, and you likely watched it, but also there's more. There was also a localization announcement for North America and Europe, I'd imagine, and some other tidbits about the world and sort of this game's connection to another game, which I will get into. And you might be thinking to yourself, why this take so long? And I've said this a million times in these videos. I always take forever with stuff. But besides, like, just the Christmas holidays and whatnot, I was mainly just focused on Zestiria for the time being, both for the podcast and for this channel, which at this point you've seen both my video and the podcast. I don't remember. I guess listen to the podcast, but I don't remember if I said I was going to post this video before or after my Zestiria video, but it's going up after I've decided, so yeah. And I figured since there's been a lot of information that's been coming, I'm just going to kind of make this like a big sort of like editorial thing. I actually did just watch the trailer because when I tried recording this earlier, I felt like I didn't really remember too much. I'm mainly going to focus on I'll focus on the story a little bit, but I'm mainly focused on the game mechanics and different stuff and what it can mean for the future of the series, because I think there's something we probably should address, or someone should address. So, yeah, firstly, the trailer, it showed us more of the world we're going to see. We got to see a cool samurai guy as well as a Velvet, who we now know actually uses a arm blade, kind of like freaking all the Assassin's Creed people. I think it's meant to just kind of be like a sword, I guess. She also looks like she's gonna have some melee attacks. So I feel like she's gonna be a hybrid of, hand-to-hand combat and weaponry, or I guess swordsmanship, swordswoman, I guess, because I got to remember Velvet's the female protagonist here. And we also got to see her little demonic arm thingy that I think we had seen before. I don't remember, but it was cool. Based on the gameplay, I feel like it's probably just going to be treated more like a hyper mode as opposed to a like a transformation like the Chromatus and the Armatus. I think it's going to probably be like the same idea, maybe. That's what I think, at least. I don't think it's going to be anything too major. You can probably still do a Mystic Art in it, but I don't think it's going to be too big, unless you get to a point to where she can actually transform more into a monster, which I think would be interesting given this game's story, But we also got to see more werewolves. That seems to be the main monster here. We get to see a bunch of werewolves, and we also get to see a lizard guy, which kind of reminded me of the Elder Scrolls and the Argonians, and that was cool. We also get to see a new character named Laphicet, or that's what his name is apparently, which is funny because the katakana, if you can read katakana, his name is read as Laphicet. Yet, I think in the localization notes, as well as the Japanese website where they have like the English name kind of hidden behind the Japanese katakana, it's spelled Laphicet. And I don't know, and Velvet, we learned Velvet's last name. It's spelled like it would be Crow, but in the katakana, it spells Kurao. So I guess it's going to be Velvet Crow, which I think is actually probably better because we already have a Crow. With Tea Tree or Tai Tree and Rebirth, however you want to say it. This is like the third time we've had a Tales character's English and Japanese names, even if they're supposed to be the same, be kind of different. Like with Sore, his name is in katakana was written as Sure, and because of that, I think in the dub they purposely went with Sore when pronouncing his name, even though in both English and Japanese it's spelled Sore. And it's mainly in Laphicet here, like I said with Velvet's last name, Crow or Crow or however you say it. Like it sort of lends itself more to the alternate pronunciation, I think. But yeah. So yeah, Laphicet. I'm gonna it's probably Lafayette, or I don't know. Maybe they'll change it back to Lafayette. I kind of like the way Lafayette sounds, but you know, he's very much kind of like as seems to be quoted by Abyssal Chronicles and anyone else who reads it. He's Lafayette's pretty much the light for Velvet's darkness. That is her revenge. He sort of seems to be like, I guess for lack of a better term, the one good thing in her life, because she seems to be kind of depressed and angry at the situation that kind of happened. During what we will call right now is the Scarlet Night. And based on the footage we saw, I kind of got an impression that, yes, she was cursed, and in the trailer says, like, you don't have to forgive me. This is my sin to bear, Velvet. And she's like, I won't forgive you for as long as I live. But I kind of got the impression that she got manipulated, and that she was the one who did the actual murdering part, or maybe there was some sort of misfire. We don't know how much this game story is going to actually tell us. We don't know if it's going to be like Grace's, where we actually get to experience that dark moment and sort of grow with the character and develop with them, as opposed to it being as if like we're meeting them for the first time later on in life, and we learn about this story later on. And basically because of what she does, like she's seen fighting the wolves in like her village outfit, and like there's a moment where she kind of like brings her head up and she's looking, and her eyes get really wide, and then it zooms out from behind her, and like an aerial shot, I guess isometric. And you see all these dead people, like all these dead farmers and villagers. And so my impression is that she probably thought she was attacking monsters, but something was going on with her mind to where she saw the people as monsters, and so she had attacked them or something. Or maybe she has like a complex where she hates werewolves, or something. But I've got the impression I've been getting the impression that she was manipulated somehow. And that's my viewpoint. The tagline for the English version of the localization announcement was emotions versus reason. Very, very much like, because obviously the logical thing to do would be to try to either move on, or if you really have to get revenge, like do it in like a just way. But obviously, Velvet, she's very angry, and you can hear that in her voice acting. She's very kind of angry, and she wants vengeance and revenge. And that this one guy, who I think is probably the samurai guy, he says, like, why do birds take to the sky and fly? That's just the way it is. You can't change anything. Sort of like it can't be helped sort of mentality, and I imagine that'll probably play a lot into the story. If you've listened to the podcast, then you've already heard my friend Ryo's idea that Velvet will probably have like a few angry moments, and Lafayette will be the one to calm her down. And I agree with that. I'll probably have a link to, I'll have a link to just the podcast in general, because I don't remember what specific episode it was. No, I'll try to find the specific one it was, and I'll link that one if you guys want to hear our thoughts on that. And yeah, I agree with that, and that's probably what's going to happen, especially if it gets to a point to where her monster beastly thingy gets too powerful or whatever. Her arm kind of looks a little bit like held off to me. That demonic, sort of. It looks sort of like a burned, sort of like evil fire demon version. And like I said, in the combat cutscenes, we actually saw stuff, and Lafayette seems to be the mage. He's classified as a spirit. And apparently spears were used as slaves by people. And one of the new things we've learned recently is that this game is actually going to take place in Tales of Zestiria's past. The world that this game takes place in, Wasteland, like, in the future, like, they're a continent like landmass. I don't know if they mean like just an area that's inhabited right now that's going to turn into this later on, but it's apparently going to become Glenwood from Zestiria. And there's a lot of like terminology that's like thrown around, like, you know, terminology for the monsters. Like, I mean, to be fair, that's kind of common. It's also apparently a disease that can happen. That obviously they mean like, you know, that's their perspective. They don't know that it's sort of like a that it's sort of like meant as a as like a it they don't understand that it's malevolence. Or of course, as far as we know, this game could probably like bring some new light to the world of Zestiria. I imagine both Zavid and Lila may show up, or I hope they do. If this game is supposed to connect to Zestirian, I'll get to my viewpoints as to whether or not I like that in a minute. But yeah, and they throw out the term like the savior. You know, it's like it's very. They have a lot of terminology that gives like little hints that this takes place in the same world as Zestiria, but like a lot earlier. I think they're going for it takes place in the Age of Chaos, like maybe like right at the start. Because you know, obviously, you know, what Sora is like, what's 18 years old or something, 17 or 18, I don't remember what. But he obviously like that's a long time. But you know, it'll be interesting to see how this connects with Zestiria, I guess. But yeah, so this game basically is it's like an indirect prequel. I think it's sort of like Symphonia to Fantasia, where like it takes place in the same world, but like they're not going to outright tell you. There's not a big fat 2 slapped on the front. It's not Tales of Zestiria 2 necessarily. It's more like a just an indirect prequel. Which to be honest, you know, with that Symphonia thing in mind, at this point I've sort of made my peace with Symphonia. I actually respect it a bit more, but my main issue with this whole thing, I just don't like the I was hoping for like an original game. I mean, sure, there was a lot of questions I had about Zestiria, but I don't know if I necessarily need those answered or else I'll die or anything. But it would be nice, and that's I think apparently people have been like trying to look for connections, like early connections in Zestiria. And there is one thing about they do bring up like a night, like they do bring up the Scarlet Night, which is the time when the monsters appeared and or like humans turned into monsters and whatnot. They do bring that up, so that's a thing. And so there are some connections, I guess, and but I was just hoping for an original story. Because of the connection to the Hellions, I don't really like the use of the overabundantly use of werewolves. I don't know, maybe it's meant to be sort of like an early form of the Hellion. Maybe it's just like a early promotional like stuff, like just used for like temporary use. But I feel like with Hellions, based on what we learned from Zestiria, you know, Hellions can basically be any monster. I mean, sure, they mainly were like bears and tiger things, but I don't know. And it's really kind of because of this whole werewolf thing that I feel like I mainly wanted like a different, like a more unique world and not just a indirect prequel. Not that I really thought Zestiria was necessarily that bad, but of course, the video's up now, so you can definitely watch it and hear my thoughts on the game. But I was just kind of hoping for something new. I think they may be trying to figure out, they being Namco, trying to figure out kind of what works best, and I think they're trying to see how the indirect prequel works with Fantasia and Symphonia, because I remember that seemed to be the one that really like put them like big on the map, especially internationally. Speaking of internationally, this game was announced for English localization, and it's coming out on PS4 and PC. Again, Ryo and I called it on the podcast. I had a feeling they would just push it to PS4 because, I mean, at this point, I don't care who you are. It is so clear that this game is being made for PS4. Like, they're only putting it on PS3 just for the people who still don't have a PS4 yet. Like, let's be real. Like, especially considering the fact that the game is in, like, the trailer was showing like 60 frames as far as I could tell, and the graphics look a little more sharpened, like a little more clear image, which has basically been the PS4. Like it's not completely better as far as I can tell, not completely better than the PS3, but the graphic quality is a little. It's like sort of I guess 720 versus 1080. I guess it's a clearer image, and you can look at the screenshots. I have two of them here. It's going to be a little compressed, but you can. But basically, like this game is being made for PS4. Like I feel like I was gonna get it on PS4. The only reason why I didn't want to get Zestiria on PS4 was because it originally came to PS3, and then for the North American version, they brought it to PS4. Like, if Berseria was a PS3 game, and then in North America and Europe it came to PS4, I would do the same thing. I know a lot of people are kind of upset that it's not coming out for PS3, but at some point you need to kind of upgrade, especially with all the stuff that's been coming out for all the new stuff, because eventually they're going to stop making stuff for like PS3 and 360. I think the 360 is pretty much done, and we already know the Wii's done. They're focusing on the Wii U and the NX and the 3DS and whatnot. But yeah, I'm definitely getting this on PS4. And there's the PC version, which they can, I guess, that's meant to be sort of like the if you don't have a PS4. But though I've heard that PS4 games are a lot easier to port to PC. But yeah, I'm getting the PS4 version. And besides that, the only other thing I can really think of to talk about is the combat. One, they said that it's going to focus mainly on the free run. You're going to be able to move the camera around freely during battle. And your arts are going to be mapped to all the buttons, including X, not just X and circle, like it was in Zestiria and Graces, but also square and triangle. Which is making me think that this game is going to go for more of a seamless action game rather than the linear motion battle system. I think they still are using the linear motion battle system, I believe, or that's what they've said in like a magazine scan. But I'm kind of getting an impression that they're trying to sort of like transition into seamless as much as possible. I think they're still kind of experimenting a little bit. Zestiria, although they did do some different stuff, it still felt like a Tales game to me. I think the main thing that kind of made it not feel like, for me at least, was probably the seamless thing. Though, and I think they may be wanting to like make the game as seamless as possible. And because of that, I think they're trying to work with because I know the camera was a bit of an issue with Zestiria, but I feel like, an issue in one game, like I don't think that's enough to like warrant, especially when this series is kind of so stylized. But yeah, I suspect that this game may go for more of a more strict. I don't want to say hack and slash, because hack and slash is it's a bit more emphasis on just like killing enemy after enemy after enemy. Like a lot of people call games like Skyrim and Dark Souls hack and slash when they're really not, because there's too much focus on like evading and guarding, and not to mention you're not sent like hordes and hordes of enemies like Devil May Cry is a hack and slash. Dynasty Warriors is a hack and slash, and that's my main thing. I think it's probably just going to be an action RPG. Like it might have some hack and slash elements, but the main thing for me, like just based on the stuff because like mapping all the arts to the other buttons, like why would you need to do that? Most games don't do that unless like there's just one, unless like it's unless I don't know, like that kind of says non-linear motion battle system. I don't mean non as in non-linear. I mean non as in not LMBS battle system in this game. And plus being able to control the camera, like again, we can't really say anything for sure because we don't have like any demos or anything. I imagine as we go through, there's probably going to be one. But I suspect that this game may be a bit more on the action side of things. Not, I don't really have a problem with that because I like action RPGs. I know how some people might not like it because that may come across as being not as strategic. But I feel like action games can still be strategic. It's this that it's not like the planning side and like sort of micromanaging side. You kind of have to. It's more about thinking on your toes and being quick with your thinking, which in its own way is a bit more stimulating than planning because you have to be quick. You can't just like lollygag. You have to be a little faster. And it's because of that I prefer the more I really only like in terms of RTS. I'm mainly a Warcraft guy. I'm sure there are others that are more up my alley, but in terms of strategy games, I do prefer the ones that if it's not that they have a pause button, but I prefer the ones where you kind of have to think a little quicker. And so that's my stance on the action thing. Like, I think it'll probably appear as being not as thought out. I guess I guess I should really just say we don't really know, but I speculate that this may be more on the a bit. It might. I guess what I'm trying to really say here is that I feel like this Tales series has a chance of sort of losing its gameplay identity, which you would think is not a big deal, especially for those of you that like turn-based RPGs. I personally don't care for them. Like, I'll play them if I absolutely have to, but part of the reason why I like the Tales series is because it took the traditional turn-based RPG system and like took out the turn-based part of the battle and threw in like a real-time battle system in the place of the turn-based. Like, it's like a blend of like two genres, and I feel like it just did a good job. And I feel like I wasn't really too pleased with them going seamless and Zestiria because I feel like there was a chance we might get to this point, and I feel like here we really just have to see. I think hopefully we'll have like some demos that people can play like at conventions or something, and we'll get to see. There's a chance that it may just be it's just linear motion battle system, but they're giving you more to work with. At this, I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think of like why exactly they would let you like map your arts to the other buttons, because like, do you really need to have 4? Like the way they are? I don't know. It's I guess we'll just have to see. You can play as Lafayette if you want. So but of course the perspective is also a little different. Now, if you look at the footage, the camera is in a more hack and slash like or over the shoulder fighting game sort of or just action game position, and with Lafayette, like, he's kind of off in the corner where you see sort of Velvet doing her little doodly dab thing. And it's mainly it's really kind of because of what we saw as well that's making me think this might be a bit more action heavy. Again, not that I have any issue with that. But I do think the Tales series has a chance of losing its identity. And for some reason, I've been thinking about the end of the Tales series. If I'm being realistic, it probably won't end just because, it's a successful franchise. Why would they end it? It's not like I don't know. It's not like a TV show to where it kind of has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Like, these games, each story is different, and I don't know. And I think part of it is because I feel like we might lose the Tales series identity. It's kind of late, so I know I'm not necessarily being the most coherent, but I'm doing what I can. But yeah, I don't necessarily think it's gonna. We really don't know. Like, some people probably think it is going to be linear motion battle system, but like, I don't know. I think there's a chance it might not, because one, with the linear motion battle system, there really is no need to be able to control the camera, because they just need to. The way to fix it would be just to have like a better way to have a better camera system. Like, you don't need to be in full control of the camera. And it's going to be based more on free run as well. Like, they note that specifically, and and because of that, it's like, so you mean we're just going to be able to walk around wherever we want? We'll just have to see. I'll still play it if it doesn't have linear motion battle system and more of just like a straight up action RPG with some hack and slash stuff. Like, I'll still play the series, but I feel like it'll be a little bit of a different experience for me. Um, I feel like it's a little backwards with the Tales series because, like I've said many times, I feel like the Tales series, what makes it stand out between other action RPGs is that I feel like the Tales series has a high level of polish. Like, to me, even like the weaker Tales games are still like of high quality and have some good stuff about them. Maybe it's just because we live in a world where bad games are there aren't too many bad games from my perspective, at least. I mean, there are games I don't like as well as others, but for me to dislike a game, you must really have to mess up. Um, but yeah, I have been kind of. I think part of it is because of other circumstances, and because some of these other series I'm into may end like Dark Souls 3 is apparently going to be the last one. Shenmue's going to end after 4. Um, East, I don't know. Onimusha's done. Mortal Kombat, I don't know. Dragon Ball's probably gonna end at some point. Fable, as far as I can tell, is over, with the exception of like that one game. And I don't know. I've just been thinking about like if the Tales series goes away and I can't play new games, like what am I gonna do? Because yeah, we'll still have all the old games and whatnot, but I mean, part of being a fan of a franchise is also getting to experience the new stuff as well. But I don't know. Well, I'm not trying to scare anybody. Like, I don't think it's gonna end. But yeah, I am interested in how. I feel like this game is gonna have a bit of a darker story. Even with after seeing the trailer, it seemed a bit more what I would expect from Tales. I hope it has a darker story. We'll really just have to see. Um, yeah, I'm still looking forward to it. I'm mainly just kind of concerned that the series will kind of lose its identity a little bit and become one of those open world action games, which I like those kind of games, but for the Tales series, I kind of look for something different. And by changing it, I feel like the structure is gonna be damaged a little bit. But ultimately, we'll just have to see. Like, it's something. But yeah, thanks for listening, and this is Flamesron, aka Tasuke, signing out. See you later.